Hey guys, this is Donald, the solo RPG guy here. I've decided I'm going to make a video on the 4 things you need to be what I would consider a good solo role player. Um, I've seen lots of questions in the Facebook groups and comments and whatnot on my videos on how do you play solo, and that is not a question that can be easily answered and summed up in a couple of sentences, simply because the sheer amount of role-playing games that are available and the sheer amount of different ways each of these games can be played. I mean, there are some games that are focused solely on the combat side, and then you have those other games that are more geared toward the storytelling, and then you got those that are kind of in between. You name a type of role-playing game that you can think of, and you could probably go online or to go to Drive Through RPG or any other place and find a role-playing game that kind of fits in that ballpark, just because the sheer amount of role-playing games that are available. And of course, then there's the other problem is, well, how many of you are out there are GMs or DMs or game masters or whatever terminology you want to refer to? Each and every one of you will DM a game completely different than the person sitting next to you. Everybody has their own different style. So when it comes to, trying to fill in those gaps, that's also kind of difficult to explain. How I DM and how you DM things will be completely different. So hopefully with these 4 things in mind that I'm going to go over, maybe that might help you with your particular style of GMing. Remember, when you're a GM, you got to wear many hats. You got to be the storyteller. You got to be the rules lawyer. You got to be, you got to be pretty much a little bit of everything to be a halfway decent GM. So first thing you got to do is work on your GM skills. I don't know what level of GMing you're at. I've been playing role-playing games for 35 years. So I've got 35 years of experience. But for someone who's just picking up role playing, or somebody who's just picking up role playing and trying to do it solo, I can understand where you have lots of difficulty, because you got this big, huge thing in front of you, and then you're trying to condense it down to a point where you can play solo. All right, the first thing you need, number one thing you need is, the game system itself. I've heard it referred to as a rubric, but in a sense, it's choose what game you want to play. As you can see right here in front of you, I've got several different role-playing games. This is just a small part of my collection. In addition, I've got like every 3rd edition book for D&D. I played 3rd edition for a very long time. I've got some old 1st edition D&D books and some 2nd D&D edition books. Even got some 3.5 books floating around here. So I've got a plethora of role-playing material to work off of, and a whole bunch of role-playing material to, utilize. But first thing you got to do is choose your system. Find a game system that you like. And then you first have to, before you just say, ooh, I love this game system, you also got to think, since you are both the GM and the player, how much work are you willing to put into this? Like I said, I have every 3rd edition book out there. And if you can see right here in the middle, I have the GURPS Dungeon Fantasy role-playing game. I like both those systems. However, I will not play those solo, only because they're so detailed and so rules heavy that I would literally be bogged down. So if you're new to role-playing, especially role-playing solo, find yourself a system that is relatively simple and then work your way up. I did a review once on this, the Ancient Odysseys. You can check out my channel and see that. This is a simple rules light system. This would be something good for, someone who's just starting the solo role-playing or just role-playing in general. So there's that. This book here, the thing in the lake. This is from Dark City Games, which is running newer versions of pre-programmed paragraph adventures that came out many years ago under the Fantasy Trip, which you can see the newer version is sitting here, the actual full-fledged role-playing game. But if you're just looking for, okay, I want to read, pick a path adventure, well, that's the kind of thing that you'd want. Dark City Games has a bunch of fantasy. They got a couple of Western. They got a couple of sci-fi. So if you're just looking for something that's extremely rules light, read the paragraph, make a choice, roll some dice, you know, this might be something you might want. If you're a subscriber to my channel, you've seen this, Forbidden Lands. This is one of my favorites to role play solo when I'm in the mood to like do a hex crawl, because this is specifically designed for a DM to run characters in a survival hex crawl, and has 90% of the material already into the books that you need if you want to run the game solo. The only thing you're missing is the Oracle and maybe a way to generate NPCs. Maybe a few quest generators, but everything else you pretty much need if you want a relatively in-depth yet somewhat easy role-playing system to solo. This is one I would highly recommend. I just recently did a video on this one. I'm getting ready to, actually tomorrow, I plan on running a solo game of this and testing it out solo. Because if you look at my video review on that, it's already got, excuse me, a pretty good role-playing setting involved, and I want to try playing in that type of setting. So, and again, once it's relatively rules light, but still has enough crunch to, you know, keep me about the level I want to be at. You got rules light, you got rules heavy, and then you got rules mid, which is where I like to be. So I will be running that for myself solo probably tomorrow. This game here you probably never even heard of. This is Legends of Fantasy. They don't even have a print copy. This is a PDF that I got printed out. This was the second role-playing game I ever converted to solo. And I learned a lot through playing this particular game on what you need to, you know, try to have a halfway decent solo experience. And if you like a simple rule system that uses the binary die system, not that complicated, check it out. It's on DriveThruRPG. I think you can get the PDF for like $9 or $10. And then one of my newest acquisitions, I don't even think I can fit in here, is the new updated version of the Fantasy Trip. Now, the Fantasy Trip was the first role-playing game that I attempted to do solo, the original version. I had the PDFs, and at that time, the same company was printing out these pre-programmed paragraph adventures that I had read, and I'm like, you know, I can possibly try to do this solo. Now, this was before I came across all the people on YouTube who play solo. I thought I was the only weird one that wanted to play his role-playing game solo, especially since I couldn't find a group at this time. My group had to fall apart. That thing called life, marriage. One had his wife get sick. People moved away. I'm in a military town, so people come and go so often that sometimes it's hard to get a group together. But with that being said, the Fantasy Trip was the first game I ever attempted to run solo. So I have a special affection for this game, which is why when I saw the new box set, the Legacy Edition, came out, I went ahead and got that. And I will attempt to do that solo here one day as well. So the first thing you got to do is decide what system you want to use. There are so many different role-playing game systems out there that, I mean, you've got your choice. Find the game that you like And find something, more importantly, that you can handle from both the side of the DM and the side of the player. If you can handle the rules heavy of 3rd edition or 5th edition D&D or something like GURPS, go for it. If you need something, real simple, use the shaking of the camera there. Oh, we almost lost you. Get you something like this. If you want, you find something in between. Something like Shadow of the Demon Lord or Forbidden Lands or the Fantasy Trip. I know the Fantasy Trip follows to make a warrior type character. Poof. NPCs, characters, any type of warrior type dude literally can be made in less than 2 minutes. Try to make an NPC warrior of a decent level in GURPS, Fantasy, or D&D. It'll take some time. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time making NPCs. I want to make time to play against the NPCs, fight the NPCs, interact with the NPCs, whatever the case may be. So the first thing you need is decide on your rule system. Once you figure out what rule system you want to play with, then you move on to the second step. And then I will take us to the second step here in a minute, and we will see you then. Actually, before I go on to the next item, another good role-playing system you might want to check out is Open Legend. Now, this is the actual copy of the book, and I forgot how much I paid for it. But if you go to, I believe it's openlegend.com or openlegend.org, you can actually download the rules for free. It's an open source RPG. You can pretty much make whatever type of character you want to make. It covers multi-genres. You can play a space game. You can play a fantasy game. You can play whatever type of game you want to play. Open Legend RPG. Like I said, you can go get the rules for free. It's not rules heavy. Matter of fact, it's very free form once you understand the rule set with that. So if you're looking for a free RPG you want to try out, go to the Open Legend RPG site and check it out. All right, we'll move on to the next step. All right, we're on the part 2. The second thing you will need for a good solo RPG experience now is your tables, your charts, or by whatever method you've decided that you're going to generate your quests, your DM, your quests, your NPCs, your dungeons, your whatever it is that you need. Sometimes I like to use, I believe I've already done a video on the pack system. If I need a random foe out of nowhere, I can just draw a card. This other game here that I got from the Game Crafter. If I needed to make a dungeon for myself, I can either A, use the charts in my Forbidden Lands book, or 2, I can use like a card from this game to generate this mine, this abandoned castle, this cavern. There's another chart here for another type of mine, ancient city ruin. So I have this game here, which helps me generate, random dungeons and such. Put this off to the side. There's these 2 books, Table Fables 1 and Table Fables 2. They are filled with all kinds of various charts to generate just about anything you might want. Weather and armors and weapons, and you can generate a character. There's all kinds of charts available in this book here. But I would more than likely recommend Table Fables 2. It has more useful charts. I believe it's got a dungeon generator in the back, so if I needed to generate a dungeon for myself, if I can find that particular page, there's a kingdom generator if I want to generate a kingdom, various religions, cults. Let me find that dungeon generator. Well, it might help if I just, went to the index. Dungeon generator, page 58. Right there's a simple dungeon generator. If I wanted to just hit a random dungeon, you can see there it gives you charts on whether or not it's a tomb, a temple, natural cave, stronghold, castle, prison, tower, whatever. Works really, really well in combination with Forbidden Lands. The size of the dungeon, how big, how many rooms, the condition, lighting, atmosphere. Between these two books, I find myself referencing this one more than this one. So get both if you can, but I recommend this one. I just recently did a review of Shadow of the Demon Lord. There's a few charts in here for creating a background for your character. Nothing says you can't use that to create a background for your NPC. And then if you've been a subscriber on my channel, you know I love these cards here. That's the first video I ever did a review on. You might want to check that out. This right here takes care of generating my NPCs. It takes care of sometimes I generate quests from it. You know, if I'm too lazy or can't find my dice, I already got my dice roller up there. So that will that helps me a lot as far as generating my NPCs. Magic items, whatever. Find whatever charts or materials work best for you. Nothing says you have to buy any of this stuff. You can sit down and make your own charts. If you are watching this and you came from the Facebook group for Artichoke Dip, he goes over many ways he creates his charts. He's got a notebook. He just writes down his D100 and goes to town. You can take all these materials that I have here and create your own from these materials, or if you can't afford it or you don't have any of these materials, just make it up on your own. It's your game. Do what you want. So that's the second thing you need. You need your generative tables. You need some way to create that random NPC, that random dungeon, that random quest, whatever the case may be that you need to generate. Not only do you have sources like these, but if you go online and just, search NPC Generator, see if they got one for your particular game. If not, nothing says you have to have a generator designed specifically for your rule system. Just take something else. You can easily convert it. If I happen to draw, the skeleton out of here, well, gee, I got stats for skeleton for my game in the book. If I happen to draw, the high-level wizard, I can use the rules out of Shadow of the Demon Lord, Forbidden Lands, or whatever game system I'm running, and make that wizard NPC if that wizard NPC is going to be around. If I'm just talking to him for a few minutes and then I'm going to leave him and have nothing to do with him later, I don't worry about writing down his stats. But if he's going to become an important NPC, then of course I will write down his stats. Another thing I liked about this Lone Wilderlands game that I just showed you is there's what I call the NPC relations chart. Let me see if I can find that for you while I'm sitting here running my mouth. There is a chart in here where if you're like in a city or whatever, you can determine if the NPC has some type of relationship with another NPC. That kind of brings life to the game. Well, I'm having a hard time finding it. Maybe it's on one of these cards. But you can just roll on a random chart. It don't matter. Give me one. I'm doing a hex crawl. This game has a card here. I don't know if you can read it, for generating terrain. Of course, usually I use the Forbidden Lands map anyway, but that is one thing you can use. Go through whatever games you have and see if there's a way you can convert that game into helping you with your solo role-playing experience. For example, I have the Runebound game. And let's say I don't want to go through any of these events, and I don't want to use that event chart. Nothing says, hey, I can just pull out Runebound, grab the event cards, draw a random card, and say, poof, all right, there's my event. I'm taken care of. I'm still having trouble finding that chart. Oh, wait, here we go. I think this is it. Yep. All right. Here's a chart for you. The PC, or excuse me, NPC with the letter A. Let's say I rolled a 1, and then I rolled a 6. Is an ally of roll again, and find some, obviously a map to layer. I don't know if you can see that. Wouldn't make sense, but another D20 name. Roll a D20 chart. That NPC is an ally of that NPC. I now have an NPC relationship to another NPC. It helps breathe more life into the story as opposed to just the NPCs interacting with you. Make them allies, make them enemies. Sells or sells to, knows, seeks adventure, will buy from, spies for, is a mentor of, former leader of his town or whatever. Yeah, this little game I didn't think was all that great. Once I went through it, I found a lot of ways I can incorporate this into my solo RPG experience. So that's the second thing you need. You need some way to generate your charts, your NPCs, your dungeon, your quests, whatever the case that you need to generate. Either go online or use one of your games or get yourself these cards or maybe even these cards from packs or the Table Fables. There are plenty of options out there. Just figure out what's in your budget, what you can use, and go from there. So that's the second thing you need. You need something generative to create what you need as far as, the NPCs, magic items, whatever it is. And if you're a D&D player, you've already got all that because most D&D games, most editions already have charts in the book for creating all this stuff. You don't need to go out and get anything else. If you're a 3rd edition player or 5th edition, I'm not sure about 5th edition. I can't say much on 5th edition. I only played 5th edition once, and I don't own any of the books. But if they follow the same course every other edition has, they got charts to cover pretty much everything. In fact, I can't think of the name of the book right now, but there's a book on the Drive-Thru RPG site that literally helps you. It has every chart you need to create anything and everything for a solo RPG experience for 5th edition. And if I can find it, I will go ahead and put the link down below in the description, and you can check it out from there if you'd like. All right, now we're going to move on to number 3. Okay, the third thing you need is something restrictive. You will hear this commonly referred to as your oracle. You need something or some way of answering questions in a yes-no manner. Now, I have a tendency to use these cards because right there I've got the bad odds, the even odds, and the good odds, and 120 cards, 120 different cards to generate my yes-no answer. I know a lot of you are familiar with the Mythic fate chart. Same difference. You need some way of simply asking the question that will end in a yes or no answer. It could be something as simple as, this door trapped? Or is this NPC mad at me for something? Or is he mistaking me for somebody else? Whatever. It's your game. One thing I would not do, however, is the door trapped, and then use this as your skill set. If your character has the skill of disarming a trap, roll your skill first to see if you succeeded, and then ask the question, is the door trapped? Now, if you succeed and the door is trapped, you're fine in most game systems. If you fail and the oracle says, yes, the door is trapped, well, then now you have to find a way to generate that trap. Go back to the tables that you created before, or find a table online, or whatever the case may be. But the next thing you need, number 3, is your oracle. A lot of people, like I said, use the Mythic. I use these cards. Some people just grab an index card and make their own tables. It's your game. Make it your way. All right, the fourth and final thing you need is actually probably the most important, but it's also kind of the hardest to explain. You will need what I would call suggestive material. And what I mean by that is try to figure out what type of game you want to play. I'm not talking about what rule system. I'm talking about, do you want to play a hack and slash, kill the monsters, kick the door in? Do you want something with a little more background, like a good setting? I've explained Shadow of the Demon Lord and Forbidden Lands, the settings, the background kind of thing. If, say, for example, you like the Conan movies, well, then what is it about those Conan movies you like that you want to incorporate into your game? Lord of the Rings. You're watching a Lord of the Rings movie. What is it about that movie that you like, and would you like to incorporate that into your game? That is, like I said, it's kind of difficult to explain, but whatever it is that motivates you in a broad stroke kind of way. It's not anything specific. It's just something you're sitting there, like, for example, there's a TV show on Netflix that I watched called Spartacus. It's about all these gladiators and whatnot. And every time I watch an episode of Spartacus, I'm ready. Hey, I want to throw down. I want to fight some monsters. I don't care about the plot. Here, what I want, okay, my heroes to come across an encounter. After watching the TV show, I want my guy to be that sword swinger going in for the kill. So I will, okay, we're going to have a random encounter. Let me draw from one of my charts here and see what's going to happen. Let's just play it out. And sometimes it works out, and sometimes, well, I wind up with some dead PCs. But that is the fourth thing. You need something to kind of guide you in the direction you want your game to go. Are you looking for a hex crawl? Then go get you whatever you need to get a good hex crawl together. Like I said, I use Forbidden Lands. When I'm in the mood to go hex crawling and survive, that's the game I'll pull out. Sometimes like I said, I'm going to try the same type of thing here soon with my Shadow of the Demon Lord. It's probably going to be dark, grim, and gritty, and survival based. I might actually pull some of the ideas I got out of Forbidden Lands and incorporate it into Shadow of the Demon Lord. And if that don't work out well for me, I might try it the other way. I might try the rule set for Shadow of the Demon Lord, but play in the Forbidden Lands type setting. Nothing says, if you got two role-playing games, you can mix it up if you want. You can take one as the rule set and one as the setting, or flip it the other way around. Whatever works for you. Remember, it is your game. You're playing it solo. It's not like you need to impress anybody. As long as you are having fun doing whatever it is you're doing, then it's fine. Because if you're having fun, you're doing it right. If you're not having fun, try to figure out what the problem is and correct it. It's that simple. So breaking it down succinctly, there you go. Just remember this card. It's got the four things you need. You need your game system. You need whatever it is you're going to use as your generators. You need your oracle, and you need your suggestive material. I hope this video has helped you. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them below in the comments. I'll try to get to them as soon as I can. I do have a life outside of role-playing. I do have a job and all other, life stuff to deal with. But, yeah, I hope this video has helped you out. Take a screenshot of this, get your stuff together, and start role-playing. Until then, happy gaming!